Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay, we are still unfolding the last few chapters of the big picture with Swami Paramarthananda. Before we go into that, we could explore some questions if we have questions, doubts, uncertainties. No questions? Okay. Since we have lost David, our official questioner, our Q&A has become a little more poor, let's say. But it means that we don't have really many doubts about the logic presented by Vedanta. So we are clear about everything. So we should begin then from the shifting of identification, which is page 54. But Lynn has something nice to say before we begin.
Well,
why I'm not listening, hearing you? I'm not hearing anybody.
Oops.
You hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Now I can. Let me try. Let me try without it. Again?
I'm talking.
Okay. Sometimes I have to stick it in, and then my speaker begins.
So it's just a housekeeping question. Two points. Once you asked us whether we'd like to do Driksha Viveka, I would. I think that would be very nice. And I'm wondering if we could do Swami P's text on it, or is there another text you would use? And the other.
Well, what you wonder if we could use what?
Swami Paramarthananda's text.
That's the one I have used to when I did these teachings on Driksha Viveka. I used his book. Yeah, very nice.
Oh, I would enjoy that. And the other question is, I was listening to Swami Paramarthananda talking, and he mentioned Manana Granthas. And as instructions on how to do Manana. And I have never come across something that was categorized in that manner, although I would think, of course, it would be useful. Is that just something like Mimamsa or Brahma Sutras or things like that, or about that?
I haven't heard about any text covering only Manana. And did he mention the title of the text?
No.
No.
No, unfortunately. That's why I've been worrying about it. What is a Manana? I want one.
Yeah, no, I haven't had that. Yeah. So yeah, we have a few options. We have the Tripura Rahasya, that it's beautiful text, and I have been teaching it in Portuguese. It's so beautiful, lovely. So I know Elizabeth does not like that book, but it has.
I don't have it, so but I can get it. I can get it.
It's just a gossip that I heard, that Elizabeth did not like that book.
Who is giving me away? Is that my Vedanta buddy?
I will not tell. So, that is a lovely book. Yeah? It was published by Ramana Ashram on the 50s maybe or 40s, and Ramana used to teach and praise this text very much. So we have a few options. So, but we have some ground to cover with this book of Swami Paramarthananda, this booklet on the Vedantas, the summary of Vedanta teachings. So what else you're going to tell me a second, Singlin?
Sorry, my phone rang and it cut you off. But no, the second thing was just wondering about the Mamansaga,
Okay.
Manana Granthas, and whether there were.
No, I
That's
haven't met any teachings on those Manana mantras. No, but I can do some research because it sounds good. It sounds very nice. Okie dokie. So we begin with shifting of identification. We finished last week on the last paragraph of the Satchitananda, the nature of consciousness, our very nature. Huh? And then in the end, there was a passage, and this identification with anatma, the matter component, and ignorance of our true nature as atma, consciousness, is the very root of our existential suffering. It is referred to as samsara. And then Lynn said something very nice that we were closing last week, and we did not elaborate very much. She said, "What a blessing it is to be a human being and not a butterfly or a cat." Why? Because we have an intellect, and this intellect is going to produce something very unique, which is a sense of limitation. Yeah, this sense of there is something wrong about this existence. There is something wrong about my sense of myself. Yeah. So what she meant to say, it is a blessing because only through the sense of limitation we can search for limitless nature. If we would have never had a sense of limitation like the dogs have or any other creature, we would never begin searching for our limitless nature. So I felt I want to mention a little bit more about that because it was a very good point. No, we in every sense we are grateful for a birth in a human body, although it does not feel good to consciously experience this sense of limitation. So the other animals, they don't have a conscious mind, even if they may sense, they have a sense of danger here and there intuitively. But they don't have this psychological sense of limitation, which is inherent to the human jivas alone. So we have this, and it has quite a price tag attached to it, this sense of limitation, to be a human being. The other animals do not. But the upside of this sense of limitation is that somehow it forces us to look for a solution for this human condition, which is, is not present in the other animals. Yeah, it was very nicely said. Shifting identification, having identified the cause of our suffering, which is taking ourselves to be the body-mind complex, the body-mind sense complex. This is the cause of suffering. We identify with that which is limited, and the sense of limitation, it creates suffering. We are limited by all possible means, including time. We are also limited by space. We cannot be at two places at the same time. We are limited physically, intellectually, on what we know and not know. So we have this huge sense of limitation, which causes suffering. The sense of limitation is the cause of suffering, and we need to understand that, because everything we do from the very early morning hours, is actions with a sense with an unconscious or subconscious attempt to remove a sense, this inherent sense of limitation. So we need to do things so that we can say, okay, I have resolved this problem that was limiting me. I have gained this and that because the not having that was giving me a sense of limitation. I have removed this and that person from my life because that also was giving me a sense of limitation. So we do everything to try to reestablish our sense of limitlessness. So this is the cause of suffering. Identify with that which is limited, which is the body-mind sense complex, which brings about this psychological feeling of limitation. So we identified with that. What is the solution? We need to shift our vision to atma. We need to change our vision to atma. Is a funny way to put it, but it begins that way. We have a clear vision about our body-mind. The body, physical body, we can see it physically, objectively. We can see it with the help of a mirror. We can see nearly everything, or two mirrors. I want to see the back as well. So we have objective views of our physical body, but we also have a vision of our mind. So the body and the mind and the sense, they are anatma. We need to shift our vision from anatma to atma. So the problem is that we cannot really shift our vision to atma unless we understand that atma is not something other than myself, right, Karen? How I'm going to shift my vision to atma unless I understand that atma, or the self, conscious existence, is nothing other than my own self, is my own existence. There's nothing, outside of myself that I can take a vision, take an objective view. So we need to shift our identification from the anatma to atma, the self, which is pure, limitless consciousness. Identify with that which is limited causes a binding sense of limitation and sorrow. We know that. But by instead realizing the limitless nature of the consciousness that we are, you see, realizing the limitless nature of consciousness, which is our very nature. It's not realizing the limitless nature of consciousness and, oh, I wish I was also very limitless, but I'm not. No, realizing the limitless nature of consciousness, which is my very nature, is the only solution to remove this sense of limitation and sorrow, which is attached to the body-mind complex. It is due to this misidentification with the body-mind sense complex that we experience limitation. And limitation is the source of sorrow. What is the solution? Shifting our identification from the body-mind complex to what? To pure, limitless consciousness. And how are we going to do that? We have to disconnect and connect. So how am I going to connect with the self if I am the self? I just need to understand that I am consciousness and not the intellect, not the mind, not the subtle body, which is just a reflecting medium. Being other than the body, we are unaffected by whatsoever happens to the body. The body gives us the most sense of limitation. The mind gives us a sense of limitation as well, because mind, our knowing ability is so limited. So what we can know in terms of phenomena, objects in the world, is so limited that everybody, the people who give up on sense pleasure, they move into knowledge and they start devouring books and books and books. Like same way, trying to remove this sense of limitation, because the mind also is limited. The intellect is limited in what it knows. The body is limited because it develops wrinkles, and then it decays and gets sick. And then we know how this body is going to end, where it's going to end. This gives us the most clear, tangible sense of limitation, because consciousness by nature being beyond time, eternally shining, it reflects in the human intellect, and it gets attached to the body mind, and then it finds it insulting to be limited by the birth and death of the body. So, and then one has to understand that the consciousness I am is not limited by my birth date and my death date, okay? It's not, because it's shining everywhere. It's reflecting everywhere. The universe is just shining, reflecting this conscious existence. So the only way for us to transcend this sorrow due to identification with the physical body and the subtle body, both, but the body is the most heavy because everybody gets into this sense, this notion, unconscious notion that if I lose my body, I lose my existence. Have you thought about that? Oh my God, no, if I lose my body, I lose my existence. How can existence say that I lose my existence if existence is one non-dual conscious being, So the body and the mind are limited, and we need to let go of identification. Being other than the body, we are unaffected by whatsoever happens to it. So we are no longer bound by time. Time is going to consume everything that Ishvara creates. Time is a mechanism that Ishvara keeps creating, time keeps consuming. And Ishvara tries, and again, time keeps consuming. They say that it's Lord Shiva. Shiva brought about time to consume everything that Ishvara brings into existence. Brahma creates, and then Shiva comes behind, and he's a little bit natural, say, okay, I'm going to destroy what you create. And Vishnu is there in between, have a big trouble to keep peace in the house and sustaining the living creatures. Meanwhile, it is a funny picture. But time, or Lord Shiva, is going to consume everything. So the body, the physical body, is very limiting to us, especially when it starts presenting a lot of aches, shoulder aches, back aches, neck ache. There is nothing worse than neck ache. I'm not managing to get rid of my neck ache. And that's why they say, you are pain in the neck. That's probably why people say that. So we know what happens to the body, and the death of the body is something that we don't like to even think about that. By identifying with consciousness and not the name, the form, and the notions, we instantly go from mortality to immortality. So it's so easy, to drink from the nectar of immortality. How are we going to drink this nectar? People in the spiritual world, they have this funny idea that, yes, I go somewhere, I'm going to see an alchemist or a guru or something, that they have this elixirs of immortality. There was a title of one of the books of Nisargadatta Maharaj that was at the feet, the nectar at the feet of the master. You remember that one, Lynn? Drink the nectar at the feet of the guru or master, something like that. So how are you going to drink this nectar? Oh, you have to go and drink it from the guru. Okay, but how does he make it? It is a chemical, or where he gets the ingredients to create this nectar. So there is no such a thing. There is no nectar that's going to make the physical body eternal, because it would go against the laws of the creator. The creator creates things, and everything it creates, it needs to be consumed by time. So there is no such a thing. The physical body Ishvara will never break its own laws to make, to give the privilege of some creatures to live eternally, okay? So how are we going to go and live eternally? Huh? If the physical body will never live eternally. So if we want to live eternally, we have to claim our identity as consciousness, because only as consciousness I am eternal. Oh, but that's not much fun because, consciousness cannot have fun in the world, only jivas. Isn't it? The idea is that but I want to be a super jiva to live, to have fun forever, No, consciousness is the only immortal, beginningless principle. And if you want to drink the nectar of immortality, shift instantly from mortality to immortality, we need to shift our sense of identity. Isn't it simple? Isn't it fun? Is it a good way to live? Trying to shift one's identity from that which is mortal to that which is immortal, and relax about, the mortality of the physical body. This shift of identification from anatma to atma is not instantaneous. Okay. Before, Swamiji said, we instantly go from mortality to immortality. And then he corrects himself and he says, this shift of identification from anatma to anatma, from that which is mortal to that which is immortal, this shift of identification, he says that once you shift and then instantly you go from mortality to immortality. Now he says, in fact, that the shift is not instantaneous, not sudden, but it's usually gradual, okay? If it happens suddenly, it means that somebody has gone through a gradual process of ripening, maturing until that, that shift happens and appears to be sudden. Usually it takes persistent effort, persistent inquiry, because the deep-seated notion that I am the body is very, very hardwired. It's hardwired from the beginning of times, so to speak. It's beginning. This ignorance is there in the system. It's actually is the fabric of Mithya. Mithya is sustained by this eternal ignorance, not eternal. It's without beginning, but it has an end, and that end comes with self-recognition, self-knowledge, and the hard and fast shift of identification. It takes persistent effort, persistent inquiry, because of the deep-seated notion, vasana, belief, ignorance, I am the body-mind complex. This ignorance, born of taking appearance to be reality, born out of taking mithya to be satya, names and forms to be absolute truth, reality. This ignorance, born of taking appearance to be reality, is hardwired into us and reinforced by the culture we live in. The most difficult thing is that it's so extensively, densely reinforced, this ignorance. I often say we are born in ignorance, we live in ignorance, and most of us die in ignorance because we are soaked in ignorance for 50, 70, 80, 100 years. We are there soaking in a culture which everything is there to hold ignorance in place. You understand? Everywhere we go, relatives, office to work, jobs, wherever we go, we find ignorance being sustained by every human beings around you. So that represents a problem, because even if we come with good spiritual vasanas, and then we have to go through the challenge of being programmed in a culture that's going to pull you down, no, you want to live here? Okay, no, you have to be as ignorant as us. Oh, come down here, come on. You look a bit too wise, be a good boy and be ignorant, identify with this body and begin competing here. Otherwise, you're going to be totally screwed. You just do a good job here and be very limited as you can, so that you can. So everybody is there being brought down by culture. And our spiritual vasana has to wait for what? It has to wait until the intellect develops enough discrimination, Then say, wait a moment, what happened to me? Wait a moment. And then I saw, no, there is something wrong with here. I'm not in the right place here. What did I do? I just abandoned my profession. I abandoned my profession and I became a spiritual vagabond. I did not know what I was doing, but I couldn't live in a society which was so ignorant and so insensible, and cruel, all the values, okay, all the values. And I was having a good position as a young engineer to begin from, but I couldn't live it. So this is our spiritual vasanas coming to a point after have gone for 25, 28 years of, programming, ignorance. And then you say, no, I'm just going to walk away from this because it makes no sense. So it's very tough. It's so hardwired and it's sustained by culture. You understand? So it's reinforced by culture we live in. It colors our entire perspective of our life. We see this life through the lens of ignorance, the values of society, We look through this. Swami Dayananda points out that the conclusion that we come to about ourselves determine our personality and purpose. Swami Dayananda points out that the conclusions we come to about ourselves determine our personality and pursuits. So if we have a program, a good conditioning, that is going to give us what we call an ego, which is a self-image, ideas that we have about ourselves, depends on this upbringing, this culture, and sometimes it can be so tough, I tell him all my kids, you guys know that I had so much karma to overcome. So then once we have these conclusions and ideas, image I have of myself, and then those program, that condition is going to determine our personality and our pursuits. So my life is going to be already, directed by ignorance. So in my case, I was just prepared and going this direction. It was against my soul and this and that. I tried to fit in because the program was there, determining my personality and pursuit. Thanks God, thanks Ishwara, I had some spiritual vasanas that just allowed me to say, for where society is going, and let me become a spiritual vagabond. Since our whole life has been governed by an erroneous notion of I, myself, this shift of perspective will not happen overnight. So we know it takes some effort unless we are highly or more qualified than most. It's a gradual process, as we know. Ripening is gradual. Self-recognition or shift is sudden. The ripening, maturing is gradual, and then shifting, which is equal to self-recognition, is sudden. But the sudden fall of the fruit requires a gradual ripening process. Once we have verified the truths of the teachings of Vedanta, and once we have shifted our vision, a vision, how we shifted this vision, what this vision, before it was talk about vision, I can say you cannot really change your vision to anatma. That phrase was a little bit misleading. But now when we look about changing our vision, it changes our perspective. We are going to change our vision, change our perspective. The way I'm going to look at the body-mind in the world, the body-mind is the primary instrument by which I see the world. But I, consciousness, I see the world through the body, mind, sense complex. This new vision is no longer from the intellect, but this vision is from consciousness. This is a shift of perspective, a shift of vision from the body, mind, from the intellect to consciousness. Now I see my body, mind complex, and I see the world from the standpoint of consciousness. This is the change of vision, change of perspective. You know, the Vedanta, once we have verified the truth of the teachings, and we shift our vision from anatma, the intellect, the body-mind complex, to the consciousness that I am. And then we need to apply persistent self-inquiry and nididhyasana and manana to the intellect, examining our sense of identification with the body-mind sense complex in any given moment. Okay, so that's why very few people are truly dedicated to the pursuit of this shifting of identification, because it takes a lot of work. Once you understood the teachings, and then once you say, okay, now I got it, I am consciousness, but then again and again, you know, a video comes into play, Maya comes, and then again and again, we have to do our nididhyasana, which from this angle means application of self-inquiry, application of self-knowledge. Again and again, this misidentification may come, and then we have to examine it, and on a moment-to-moment base, living through our life. So it is quite a work. But once we get to this, once we understand the value of this shifting, once we understand the value of living from that perspective, from that platform, from that angle, you know, of consciousness, from consciousness as consciousness, and then we find it to be the most pleasant and valuable exercise as a human being. You understand? Applying, remember my three limitless nature and living from that perspective. We need to become very clear in our mind that we are pure limitless consciousness. First thing, we have to get to that clear understanding, okay? And then once it's clear, and then next step is to deal with avidya, because avidya again and again is going to be challenging this self-knowledge. In my early days, before I got to have Vedanta, I understood clearly that had an incredible positive effect in my life, the way I was seeing myself in the world. But again and again, there were some vasanas playing, which was not in harmony with what I knew. I am consciousness, and I am limitless, I am non-doer, and so on. And then there was those vasanas that was pushing me around, and I was expressing myself as if I was the body-mind complex. I did not have a very clear understanding because I did not have contact with Vedanta at the time, but it was very, very confusing to me. I knew what I was, but again and again, I used to refer to that as like, I know what I am, but again and again, I betrayed this knowledge. No, it was a funny way I had to put it. It's as if I was betraying my self-recognition, you know. So it's we tend to betray here and there sometimes because of the pressure given to this hardwired piece of ignorance, vasanas. No? So first thing we need to get clear: we know we are pure consciousness, and the self is not some abstract notion, but it is the very essence or nature of our existence, of our being. No? So far, so good. Everybody is on the boat. Everybody is on the Vedanta bus, and there are no stops in between. Huh? We had a few, in this small group of ours, we had a stop before some passengers could get out, come out, but now it goes directly, and there is no stop. We have a bus room in this bus if anybody needs to take a pee or something. There are no stops. Where is our sense of identification? Who we are? We are not a part, we are not a product of the body. We are other than the body because the body is an object that appears in me. And I cannot be myself in what I see. Have you ever thought about that? I can never see myself and what I perceive, what I experience, what I see, what I touch, what I smell. Either I am the observer, the experience, the knower, or I am what I am knowing and experiencing and sensing, through my five senses. We are something other than the body because the body is seen by me, and I cannot be the seer and the seen, the knower and the known. This is very simple. We see our thoughts, we see our notions, we see our emotions, we see our memories playing out, we see the mind and the intellect. You understand? We have a certain objectivity or objectification to the subtle body that we experience it. So I cannot be what I see and being myself as the seer simultaneously. I have to decide, am I the object of my experience or am I the subject of my experience? Am I the object of what I know, or I am the knower of every knowing object, field of knowledge, We are other than the body because the body is an object that appears, and I am the subject. We pervade and enliven the body. We know that consciousness is like space, although space is not self-conscious. The space is not limitless, and the space is not the ultimate reality because space depends on other factors to come into existence. So the only reality which is free and independent of anything is that which does not depend on any other factor. Consciousness is a bit like space because it's all pervasive, and space is all pervasive as far as Mithya is concerned. So when Mithya comes into place, now we have Maya, and Maya produce the three energies, and then immediately Ishvara, with its intelligence, produce the five subtle elements. And then out of the five subtle elements, the universe starts unfolding. And the primary element is space, and it's the ground, it's the container of the universe. So it pervades the whole universe. But as we know, the universe is just a projection, superimposition, a mirage. It's something that exists, but it's not really real. So consciousness is all pervasive. We pervade and we enliven the body. So how does consciousness enliven the body? Because sometimes we see dead bodies. I went to visit my brother because my father was 92. I think I was there. We had a class when I was there. And then the mother-in-law of my brother died while I was there. My brother was in bed with a problem in his lower back, and I had to help his wife. And I saw every time somebody leaves the body, I love to go there and see the body. Now I made sure, I said, can I see the body? And then the wife of my brother found a bit strange this attraction that I have to dead bodies. And then maybe it's not a good idea here in the hospital because she's not looking good. So when you go there for the crematory, this and that, and then you can see. And then I went there and I saw it. They made her very beautiful again. So she was looking good. And the body was there. And consciousness pervades everything. But consciousness was no longer enlivening the body. So how can we explain that? Isn't it funny? So what the heck is consciousness doing there that's not enlivening the body? We know that consciousness is pervading the dead body. And what it's doing to the dead body? It is breaking down, decomposing, bringing it back to the primary elements. Huh? It's going to do that gradually in a few days. Huh? So, and then what is enlivening the body? Is it the subtle body or is it consciousness? This is a good philosophical discussion. Okay, no, consciousness, it does not provide, it does not really provide the physical body, because when the physical body dies, the body is no longer alive. So, and then its consciousness does not pervade the dead body. No, it does pervade. But consciousness can only enlivening the physical body through a medium. Consciousness needing a medium, and this medium is what? The subtle body. Consciousness is there, shining the subtle body, and then the subtle body says, consciousness, give me a break. This physical body is too old for me. I'm getting out of here. And then consciousness says, no, stay there, because there is some karmic issues that still need to be resolved. Stay there. And the subtle body is there, holding itself in that old body. And then one day it leaves. And then the body starts decomposing. So it is the subtle body that is there and living. But who is living in the physical body? Is it consciousness or the subtle body? So it is both. It is consciousness through a medium, which is the subtle body that's going to live in the physical body. So because the subtle body without consciousness is in pralaya, it's in profound macrocosmic deep sleep. So the subtle body, if it is alive, it's alive by the grace of consciousness, and then the subtle body, being the proper medium, is going to enliven the physical body. Therefore, consciousness, using the aids of its medium, meaning to say the subtle body, is going to enliven the body. A time will come when the body will perish, but as consciousness, we will survive the death of the body. I hope we don't have any doubt about that. This is the most important aspect or fruits or fructification of self-knowledge is to resolve this problem of this terrifying fear of death. You understand? So it's one of the fruits of self-knowledge is to relax about the mortality of the physical body. And I find it so beautiful to see, to know that some beings, they know how to live with elegance, to die with elegance, and with gratitude in one's heart, firm, with a firm conviction that I don't go anywhere. I am the ocean of consciousness, and this body came and is going back to its source, because everything comes from consciousness, and I am this limitless ocean of consciousness. So it's a beautiful death. It's a very beautiful death. Most samsaris, they die unconscious. Have you heard about that? Oh, it was ill and then it went unconscious, and then sometimes it hangs in there for days, weeks, unconscious, trying to cling to the body. But the yanis, I heard many stories. The yanis, they say, okay, now it's coming the time. I think it's going to be this afternoon. I say goodbye now. Okay. And and the last look, and I say, okay, I take another look here, say goodbye. And then this is, we see these people die in Hollywood, but that's all fake. People are, oh, they were shot. Oh, yes. No, people, they are shot, they go in coma right away because they are terrified with the idea that I'm going to die. Before they get in the contact with the emotional, psychological shock of knowing that they are going to die, Ishvara immediately puts them unconscious, in coma. Why? Because otherwise Ishvara is not going to manage to pull that subtle body from that mind, from that physical body. You understand? But if you see a beautiful soul dying, then and only then it can stay conscious until the last prana leaves the body. And from the people who are around Osho Rajneesh, although Osho Rajneesh was not a great teacher, okay, and had its flaws in terms of personality, maybe. I'm not here to judge or discuss that. But when he died, and I believe because the people around him, some of them I trust very much, and he was conscious until the last breath, he was saying goodbye, that yes, this is it, yeah, done. Okay, I'm out of here. Okay, people start crying. He turns and says, "What are you crying? You haven't learned that, life and death is just a myth, And then he left consciously, through its last prana, Isn't it beautiful? I don't know about you guys, but I hope Ishwara is going to grace me with the opportunity to die that way, with elegance and gratitude. When the body does die, this surviving consciousness will not be able to transact with the world, nor will the world be able to interact with the soul. Yeah? This is not because we are non-existent, but because we have no medium of transaction. Beautiful. That's why I love Swami Paramarthananda. You see, he wraps it up beautifully. When the body dies, I don't die as consciousness, but in the absence of a medium, an instrument for transaction, I'm not going to be an experiencing entity. Not because I'm no longer existent, but because I'm out of a medium for a time being, or at least right now, But once we understand self-knowledge, then we know, no, I'm not really out of any medium. I have all mediums, all body-mind complex, all over the universe by which I shine with consciousness, you understand? But the individual is gone, the jiva is gone, the soul is said to be gone if the self-knowledge has extensively burned one's desires to return, or aversions. Aversions are also desires. Aversions are desires to come here and get rid of many things that are disturbing and limiting me. So if the self-knowledge is really nicely, clearly, and effectively integrated and lived, and then it's said that there are chances that we do not want to come back with another medium of transaction. Oh, no, I want self-knowledge, but I want to come with another medium of transaction. Great, done deal. You're going to come back again. You understand? That is the power of desires, of vasanas. Oh, no, I still want to come back. And then Ishwara, okay, so you are not done yet. Okay. So you are self-realized. I'm going to send you to a very difficult place in which you're going to try to help ignorant people to evolve and elevate themselves spiritually. Oh, Ishwara, no, I want to come back as a king. No, this is not in your hands. You're going to come back, as an elevated spiritual being, but who knows what Ishwara is going to have for us, So we are not going to be able to interact without the medium. We just, we just shrink back in our subtle body. Okay, we have all impressions in the subtle body, and then for a certain time, I'm not going to have a medium. And if I have this self-knowledge, there is a chance that I will not be given another medium of transaction. It's more like that. I'm not going to be given another medium of transaction. And I want, okay. What do you think about that, Claudio? Would you like to have another medium of transaction when it comes your turn?
Difficult question. For the moment, I would say no. But for the moment, no. But we will see. We will see
You'll see.
what will happen.
We never know. We never know what is still hidden there in our causal body. You know, I always say that. Who knows? Consciously, we may say, "No, I'm done. I'm satisfied. I want to remain as limitless consciousness, and I don't need to be compressed in any form, because that means more ignorance to be overcome." You understand? More process of young age and childhood, being subject to so much ignorance until my spiritual vasana come and frees me quickly from that ignorance. But still, there is suffering. There is this realm of density and so on. So, but we never know. Sometimes there is some hidden desires from us that brings us back.
Mhm.
Whatsoever, it's all good, because
Yeah.
coming back as a higher, elevated spiritual being, it's not the kiss of death, as James likes to put.
Mhm.
Subject and object. This knowledge must become cemented in the mind. We must own our identity as pure consciousness. So it has to be so firm, so solid. There's a firm conviction about that. The same way people have this hardwired conviction that I am this body. So the shift in the conviction that I am consciousness must be cemented, has to be solid, not waving here and there when things are tough. You understand? Difficult. We must own, claim and own our identity as pure consciousness at all times. And then when that comes, and then we can say, hey, I'm so sorry, you came a little bit too late. You cannot take me. Okay, I am a limitless consciousness. Okay, do what you want with this body, but I'm not affected by you anymore. That's the only way. We must own. Continued reflection on the teaching helps achieve this certainty of self-knowledge. Continued reflection on the teaching helps to integrate this knowledge until it is hard and fast. The basic logic is that whatever we experience must be different from us as the experience. This is the most simple teachings of Vedanta. I know that my problem is a problem of identity, wrong identity, mistaken identity. So I have identified with the medium, with the instrument of experience and knowledge. So, and the most simple aspect of the teaching is that I need to understand what is an object, and then I have to determine if I am an object or if I am a subject. So how you know what is an object? The simplest way I have found to put it, it is any and everything that can be objectified. So anything that I can say, oh yes, I have known, I have experienced. It means that I am objectifying intellectually, mentally, emotionally, or physically through my sense organs, right? So anything that I experience, it must be something other than myself. Anything that I know must be something other than myself. Why? Because I am the subject knowing principle behind the knower, the entity, the instrument of knowledge. I cannot be what I know and the knower at the same time. And this knower, we need to understand that it's not the I thought. The I thought happens within consciousness. The I am happens within consciousness. We are the light of the illuminator in which the I am comes into play, and then and then all other objects, all other thoughts appear around this I am, I exist, and then that also exists. I and that, and this and that. So I cannot be anything that I perceive, and I am not the mind either. I'm not the I thought, because I is something other than myself. How you know that? Because I observe the I when the I comes. The I is the ego, right? The sense of existence that I, which is defined as what? The body, mind, sense complex. Every time we say I, depending on the density of our subtle body, if it's too gross, it's going to be fully identified with the physical body. But it's subtler, it's going to identify with the sense organs, and then it may identify with the pranas, may identify with the emotions, the feelings, the knowledge we have, which is our intellectual faculty. So everything that we are talking here are things that cannot be myself. Why? Because I am the one seeing those things. These things are seen by me, objectified by me, known by me, experienced by me, and I cannot be the subject and the object I experience and know. I have to define where I'm going to put this I. If I'm going to put it on that side of the fence, together with all other objects, or I'm going to put my I on the other side of the fence as the light of consciousness, in which the ego I happens and the world happens following this I am, I exist. So this subject object is the most fundamental tool of Vedanta. When we talk about discrimination, at the very end, it boils down to discrimination between subject and object. And the game here is I need to find a way to understand and identify myself with the subject, because that's the only safe identification I can exercise and enjoy. You understand? I need to be there as consciousness because it's the only subject, real subject. The ego appears as the instrument, the agent, the instrument, the medium, the ego, the I am, I exist of the jiva, which is a reflection of consciousness. But that ego, for as long as it is identified with its substantial nature, meaning to say the three bodies, that ego is going to be an object, believing that he is the subject, believing that she is the subject. It is the robber, dressed up as a policeman and say, now I have things under controls here. I am the subject. No, you are the object. You understand? So this discrimination between subject and object is the most simple thing, but yet it's not that easy because it is extremely subtle, because the subject is not the intellect. And this discrimination between subject and object takes place in the intellect. The intellect is doing that discrimination. But in the very end of this process, the intellect has to recognize its discrimination power to be an object within the body-mind sense complex. So this intellect has to somehow realize, by following the logic presented by the teachings of Vedanta, that although he is the fundamental, indispensable instrument to gain self-knowledge, it gains self-knowledge by classify itself as an object and taking its identity as pure consciousness. You understand? We could put in a romantic manner as the intellect commits suicidal, meaning to say, okay, I have been playing to be the subject here, but now at the very, very end, at the altar of reality, I have to say, okay, so I just bound to consciousness and I assume that I'm just an object, and we see that intellect, self-knowledge takes place, and then consciousness, which was identified as with its reflection, meaning to say the ego, assumes its true nature as consciousness. And then as a byproduct, the ego begins relaxing and having a much better time, because now the ego understood its fundamental, true, free, and independent, immortal nature as consciousness. Do you understand, Karen? So it's very simple. We cannot see what we know. We cannot be what we know, and the knower what we experience, and the experiencer. And we need to understand what really is the knower, what really is the experiencer. Because it's not the sense organs, it's not our emotional body, it's not our intellect, it's something other than the three bodies, other than this nature, this substantial nature of the Jivatma. We are that atma, which fundamentally is pure limitless consciousness. For example, the eyes can see anything in the world except themselves. This is a very simple, clear example, Vedantic analogy. The eyes can see any and everything, but it cannot see the world. But the eyes are never going to say, oh my God, I am blind. I cannot see the world. So no, the eyes are seeing the world. And then he can never get to a point and say, no, I have an impression that I don't exist because I cannot see myself. No, by inference, the eyes are going to understand, or by direct knowledge, experience, they say, no, the fact that I'm seeing the world proves that I am here existing as the seer of the world. So the eyes can see anything in the world except themselves. We cannot see ourselves, our eyes. The subject is always different from the object. Extend the same principle, we realize that we, as the experiencer of everything, are different from everything that we experience, including the medium of experience, which is the body-mind-sense complex. So if we do this Drisha Viveka, it's beautiful because it breaks it down into the different seers, okay? The seer 1, 2, 3, 4, we can break it. I was extending it, there is a primary Vedanta seer, which is consciousness, and then we have the intellect, and then we have the sense organs, and then there is the physical body that appears to be sentient and often is said to be, self-contained with consciousness. So we have all these levels, and we have to determine what is fundamentally the real seer, that is going to borrow sentience to the other seers, and then it's going to make the intellect appear to be a seer, and then the mind is going to appear to be the seer, the sense organs is going to appear to be the seer, and then the sense organs are going to borrow sentience to the physical body, and the physical body is going to appear to be the seer. So we need to trace back and go to the very, very source and understand what is the absolutely seer here, The absolutely seer is the one that illumines the following seer, but does not require being illumined by anything else. You understand? The intellect illumines the other seers below him, but it depends from sentience, his consciousness depends on consciousness, the absolute seer. Okay? The sense organs, they are seers, but they are also seen by what? By the mind and by the intellect. It's a very nice teaching, simple, but it can go very deep, helping us to discriminate the subject, which is the absolute seer. Okay, it was very nice you mentioned about these teachings, because it is all about the discrimination between the subject and the object. Okay, so now we're going to have the patience to finish this last verse here. And we have to go through creation, which could be a nice topic. original consciousness, macrocosmic levels, macrocosmic, micro. Yeah, the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara. Oh, we have a few months to go still. Liberation and karma. Liberation while living, which is Viva Mukta. And then liberation after death, the Deha Mukta. The law of karma, it goes back to thoughts based with karma. Interesting. Well, we have still a couple of months, I would say, on this book, which is lovely. Yeah. Okie dokie. So we meet again next Monday. And I hope everybody is getting this knowledge right and developing this certainty, and then getting inspired to do extra work of nididhyasana, to keep this avidya, minimized or at least under control. We need to understand there are two things. I have a friend of mine who's coming to visit me here. He is a student of mine, and he teaches in Brazil under my small sampradaya. And he was talking to me over the telephone the other day that he went through, he is self-realized, he knows, but he has been going through several vasanas that were really giving him trouble. And he did not tell me anything at the time, and now he was telling me. And again, I observe the fact that people tend to miss on one single point. Once you know who you are, vasanas may disturb your mind, may create certain emotional conditions, even, you understand? But we should never be much bothered by that, because self-recognition, self-knowledge includes to know that I'm not my vasanas, you understand? And when I see people like this friend of mine, a little bit like, oh my God, I mean, but vasanas, right? It gives me a certain suspicion that the person needs still to understand a little bit better self-knowledge, which means I'm not my vasanas. Okay, every human being is organic instrument, or biological computer with three bodies programmed by vasanas. So how can we say, oh, I want to be finished with vasanas? So we need vasanas. And if there are some vasanas that creates a little bit of disturbance, so what? Everybody is being, moved, governed by vasanas. And there are some vasanas that are not very wise. The main thing is to know I'm not my vasanas. Isn't it, Elizabeth?
Yes, you are right.
Yeah, we hold on to that certainty, okay? And then we don't need to be like, oh, isn't that vasanas? Oh my God. Huh? Okie dokie. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purname Vavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Are you okay, Karen? You had a good satsang today?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, it was good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always good and it's trickling in.
Wonderful. Okay, we meet again soon. Love you. Arrivederci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.